music country.
But where are my country music fans?
Live from Nashville.
This is Kelleigh Bannen.
Hey y'all, Kelleigh Bannen here. Welcome to today's Country Radio, and we welcome a brand new cover star, Blake Shelton. I'm excited to bring you my conversation with Blake. It's been 4 years since his last studio album. Here's the great news. Blake Shelton is back, and in a big way, and a lot of that has to do with this song.
She's probably in Texas, Amarillo, all I know, George Strait said it. Yeah, that's where all them exes go.
I don't know a lot about your early stuff. I was probably just out of college when Austin was happening.
Yeah.
It is crazy to think it's so rare that you hit a home run on the first go round. Do you ever think about how it could have fallen had it started
all the
differently?
time?
Really?
I think about it all the time because I didn't even think that Austin was a good choice for my first single. I was like, I didn't have the nerve to fight it because I was just a kid. I was 24. But I remember thinking oh my God, there's no way people are going to get this song. It's every chord. I had these things in my mind that convinced me that it wasn't going to be a hit. That all the choruses were different, so it was harder to sing along to. It was a story song, so if you weren't paying attention at the first, you wouldn't know what the hell the song was about at the end. And I just had all these reasons that I thought there would be other better choices, My first choice for my first single was my second single, which died at 18 or something.
What song was that?
It was called All Over Me. It was a song I wrote with Earl Thomas Conley and my friend Mike Powell. But thank God, being a kid and not having the nerve to fight it, not that they would have even listened to me, but I just went with the flow. And I'll never forget there was a station here in Nashville that a guy named Carl P. Mayfield was you remember Carl?
Yep.
And he, for whatever reason, I didn't even know him, he would get on these rants and tangents, and I remember one morning he said, I want to play y'all what I think is the worst song I've heard, in all my years of doing this. And then if you guys could see the cover of this kid, he's got a mullet. Someone needs to tell this guy that mullets aren't cool, but I didn't realize, Carl would beat you up to build you up, or at least that's what he
kind of part of the
that's what he did,
shtick.
Because he would trash it to the point where he'd say, I just wish this guy would call in, and
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
that's what
in
a
my mind, it was
device to use.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It went on for a month, but he would play it every morning. Oh, y'all want to hear the crappy song, and and people would call and defend it, you're being too hard,
Yeah.
And it got it going in Nashville.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
It's funny how all the little tiny million little lotteries that we have to win, that have to all go right.
I think about one thing different along the way. How big of an impact would it have had? There's no way not to think about that stuff. I mean, look at what you're doing now. You know what I mean? I know you make records and music and stuff, and now you have this whole career that I don't know if you ever saw would be in the cards. For me, it was that with The Voice. It's what is this other side thing that's way bigger than anything I've ever done that I didn't dream of it because I didn't even know it was out there,
Yeah.
Same thing with you.
Really, I do think about you and Luke and your life as TV stars and being in people's homes. And I mean, honestly, your humor was always such a compelling part of who you are as an artist and entertainer. But people getting to see that and know your personality well, you probably never foresaw that part of the journey.
No, oh my God, I was getting on TV to me meant CMT was playing my video. You know what I mean? But I always wanted to be the goofy guy, and I never have taken myself serious, and so it's just so happened that there, out of nowhere, was a platform for me to be that guy, which was The Voice, you know what I mean? Where it was just I don't know, just go sit in your chair and say stuff, you know what I mean? That's really how it started, because even back then, the producers and the network of, NBC, the producers, nobody really knew how we should interact outside of what the nuts and bolts of the show is, which is you hear somebody you like, hit the button, and then try to talk them into being on your team. And it just so happened that it was me and Adam Levine, and then CeeLo and Christina. But really, with Adam, I had met someone who wasn't afraid to go in, and you couldn't really hurt his feelings. And all of a sudden, we had this chance to act like we would never act.
Duel a little bit, and totally.
And it just worked. So,
what did you have to learn to get good at that, or do you feel like you were just came really naturally?
No, that was just, I don't know how it was with your buddies growing up, but that's how me and my friends have been my whole life, like just jab each other.
The jabs, yes.
Oh yeah, just rip each other to shreds. But I don't know if you mean like not being afraid to.
Or I just mean like being on TV in prime time, knowing how to deliver. Like, did you just know how to be on TV?
I guess. I don't know. I never really.
Sounds like maybe.
I never thought about that really. I think what doesn't work for something like The Voice is someone who may be too trained for media and too afraid to maybe say something that's offensive. I don't think you can think that way, because if you're going to entertain people, you kind of have to, you got to set some boundaries, but not too many, because you got to be able to just go in there and just be a bull in the china shop, Otherwise, who's going to remember you,
I think I feel that. And I mean, sometimes I experience it just even like sitting in this chair. I went through media training on my first record deal, repeating the question and all those things, and crafting the way, the stories that we were telling. And I love some of that because our artists show up and they're super pro. But sometimes I do think we have this, we're trying to walk this line where we're telling, it's this perfection is a barrier to connection,
1,000,000%. I even think when it comes to music and records, that we've gotten sometimes so obsessed with everything in the pocket, everything exactly on tune. Every rhyme has to be. That's not an exact rhyme. Things get so formulated that there's no. Sometimes you just kind of, what am I listening to? What is this? I want to hear something a little bit out of tune, like a little rub with a harmony or a guitar bend that don't quite get there, because something about that kind of makes you lean into it. I think that goes along with what we're doing right here too. Like you can't, if you're perfect, then that's boring to me.
I really, this is like one of my high horses. Not that I want to sing out of tune on a record, but I do wonder if we went back and tuned, some classic records from, the mid 1950s on to the standards that we now do. What's just normal, even on someone who's a great live singer. What kind of emotion is lost when you don't hear somebody reaching, and we almost become unaccustomed to like what live singing is really like.
Right. And
it's hard, because then you, even when you're listening to your own music, we've rewired our brains in a way.
Everything you're saying that's exactly how I feel. But, I started recording, I guess, in 1994, 95, when I moved to Nashville, singing demos, and even on into through my first 2 albums, I'd only ever heard like of auto-tune and things like that, and there was rumors around town like, oh, hey, so-and-so's, listen, he uses auto-tune, like you know what I mean? It's like a
dirty
big deal.
secret,
Like,
cheater.
Can't sing, it can't sing, and back then, you just stayed in the studio until you got it right. Like you just sang something 5 million times until you finally got it in tune, or you came back the next day and tried again. And so now, like, I work with Scott Hendricks, produces my records, and he still has that mentality of,
does he?
You're out of tune. We need you to
Sing
go
it
in.
again.
I'm like, Scott, tune the word. Like, I need to get out of here. No, just give me a few more, Next thing you know, you've been in there for an hour working on something, but you do always end up with something. I always end up with vocals that I'm really proud of because I know how hard I worked on them. And I talk to other artists who should remain nameless that have worked with Scott, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, how can you stand to work with Scott? He like makes you sing something 100 times." I'm going, that's how I've always done it. I really don't know any other way,
It's also how you're going to be able to pull it off live.
Yeah, that's true.
And figuring it out, and if you can't get there, what can you get to? And
right.
Is there anywhere else that kind of philosophy, what we were talking about, kind of the authenticity or letting people see a little bit of the real, makes its way into the way that y'all are making records?
What do you mean?
Well, as far as just like not over perfecting or like how y'all are tracking the band, or is there, I just think it's interesting to hear that he thinks that way about the singing, even though he probably does tune sometimes.
But oh my God, there's no way around it now. I mean, it's just a part of how we make records, but I do think that you have to spend as much time as you possibly can getting it perfect, getting as close as you can, getting it perfect, so that when it comes to that moment where somebody goes in to mix your record, they go, "Okay, I don't need to tune any of this stuff. I don't need to put it in the pocket or whatever." You know what I mean? That's the kind of record I want to deliver. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is these days. That we're tuning guitars, we're editing drums, and it gets out of control, and you have to just put your foot down sometime and say, no, start over again. I want to put the soul back in it, and so it is a fight. It's a give and take,
I think so too. So for recreational use only, it's 4 years later from the last album. Is that right?
God, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah.
Do you get in your, I'm going to betray how my own self-talk gets in my way. Mm-hmm. Does you get in your head at all? Like, oh God, it's been 2.5 years. Like, maybe we got to start thinking about this. Or is the inner monologue telling you anything as the clock's ticking, or are you just making music when you're ready, period?
No, I think about the clock a lot lately, because it's, when I was doing the voice for all those years, I kind of got into like my own like world away from Nashville, and even though I was making records and we were still putting out music, I was kind of out of the loop of what was going on here because everything was a blur. Everything was moving so fast. We were doing 2 seasons of The Voice a year. I was trying to tour when I could around that and then have a life at the same time. And so, by the time that those 12 years went by, all of a sudden it was like, man, I've gotten old now. Like, I'm one of the old guys in country music. It's like, who are these?
It happens fast.
You finally start looking at a chart and you're like,
who is that?
Who the hell is Morgan Wallen? He's got 5 songs in the top 10. I got to learn who this is. Who's Luke Combs? That's how I felt towards the end of The Voice. It was like there was this whole new generation of artists who had taken over country music, and I was like, oh my God, now I'm one of the old guys now, you know what I mean? And so I'd always thought about what it would be like when that time came. I mean, like, we all just have our moment and then it's over, And so the last 2 or 3 years, to answer your question, it's like, oh my God, I wonder if I do put out a new record, are they going to play it? Are the fans waiting on it? Or is there going to be an opportunity there for me to get back on the radio? And I mean, I think those are natural, normal things to think if you're being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And I try to be. And so when Texas came out, I remember thinking, oh my God, I was nervous about it because
Really?
I just didn't know. I felt good about the record. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I still had a spot out there,
That's
on Apple Music or radio, you know what I mean? Because, it's just either there or it's not anymore,
That's interesting. I mean, I feel did I just turn 44? Did I just turn 45?
I know exactly what you mean. Let's say 44.
Something happened.
44.
Like, before the pandemic, 2019, I was like, I'm like finding my stride. I was still probably in this sort of, new artist category to an extent. But now I like literally feel like I'm someone's grandmother when I'm like, oh wow, that 5 years.
I know it did it.
It aged me in a way that surprised me, not necessarily in a way that I'm ashamed by, but in a way where I'm like, wow, for a second, what was happening and was current was coming very natural to me, and I'm assuming to you, like. You're making it up. You're leading, right? Yeah. And now even like the way people are making records with 30 songs, I'm like, I really was like mercifully opening this album and it's like, there's 12 songs. How respectable. Like this is an album. This is like an album. But I don't know if you find that disorienting too at all.
I
like
do too.
The pace of like,
I swear, I didn't think it would be, I wasn't sure because I know people are putting out double albums and triple albums, 30 songs. And I was thinking, man, I got a long way to go before I finish this record, and luckily they were like, no, you can still put out, a 10 or 12 song album. And it's like, thank God, because my God, this is killing me, But yeah, that's just, it's amazing to me to look back to 2001, the kid that I was then, and you were saying my first song was a big record, and I remember my mentality back then was, man, I could probably work for a couple of years off of Austin. Like I'm going to get booked at all the fairs, and Billy Bob's will probably book me. That's how you thought, And I was just thinking, I'm going to get to work, and every song I even had. There used to be a show on CMT 100 years ago, and it was like not TRL. I think it was CRL on CMT, and Cletus T. Judd hosted the show. And I had just had a hit called "The Baby," which was on my second album. And during commercial break, Cletus, who also thought like I did back then, he goes, "Man, that's going to be. You'll get a couple of years of work off that song." And I was like, I know, man. I'm going to be able to, pay off my truck,
Yeah. For real.
That's how each song was like a stepping stone till one day you look back and you go, oh man, now I've had, now I did something. Now there's a body of work there that'll never go away, But,
for real.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you think of those thoughts, when you think about those early memories, like, is it just like, are you just flooded with like gratitude or like pride for what you got? You worked hard, I
think I was so scared back then that everything was going to fall apart, because I started out on Giant Records, and the rumor, about the time I signed with Giant Records, the rumor was around Nashville for years that Giant Records was going to close.
Okay.
And so I remember every day waking up like, call my manager or somebody, have you heard anything about the record label? No, I haven't heard anything, to the point that when we finally released Austin, the record label closed the week it was released.
Stop.
And I just remember thinking all this time, everything, it's just gone, Mm-hmm. And because there was a couple of stations that had started playing Austin early, Warner Brothers Records decided to pick up me and the album and at least finish working the single and see what it did. Thank God, So I kind of started off on shaky ground, and so every move from then on was like, oh, what's going to happen next, So when I look back at those days, it's like I just see a dude that was scared to death back then, but having fun at the same time,
Good. It's interesting. Like, I bring a ton of anxiety to the party. That's like part of my creative process is like loathing and self-hatred and anxiety. But I wouldn't have assumed that you bring that kind of like a dread.
Yeah. I loved it so much that I was just couldn't be comfortable that it wouldn't be gone someday. I loved it so much. It was all I ever wanted to be was one of the guys that I was hearing on the radio. I didn't even know how to do it, and the fact that it was happening, it was like, I want to hang on to this forever,
Mm-hmm.
And here we are 25 years later.
Yeah. I hope
So
it
it's
feels
been lucky.
good. Yeah. You mentioned that you're releasing Texas, kind of not knowing how it would go. How did it feel when the energy around that song started to just react?
With Texas, it's felt a lot like those early days to me because I feel like I'm learning the music industry. I feel like a stranger around the music industry these days because it's changing so fast, and I've been out of the loop for so long, and so it's exciting to me. You know, back in the day, we used to look and say, how many records did you sell this week? You know, and it's like now it's like you sold 5. You have the number 1 selling album in the country. You sold 5 albums last week. It's like, what? But look at your streams. Like, what the hell is a stream, you know? So it's like relearning all that. And so I really have to lean on people to go, all right, what's a good number?
Is this good?
What are we going for here, you know?
Yeah.
Is it like, and so I'm starting to wrap my head around it a little bit. And it is exciting to answer your question. But it does feel new again, you know, because it's like, oh, wow, you know. It's like unknown territory for me, and I'm having a blast. Like, you know, when the kids come in and go, Blake, somebody's singing your song on TikTok, and
Oh, really?
and all of that, just seeing all
Cute.
of that stuff, you know, because I don't even have TikTok or Instagram. They tell me not to say that, but I just don't have it on my phone, you know, and so to find out about all that stuff is exciting.
That's fun.
And Texas is doing really good, believe it or not.
It's doing really good.
In the UK.
I know.
That's what it's
How
like.
many? It's like 8 weeks or something.
Yeah,
at number 1.
that's what I
crazy.
heard. 8 weeks,
It's
and it's
awesome.
like, oh my God, what? That's blows my mind. I didn't know that they played country music over there.
They do.
So,
Isn't
yeah.
that fun?
Yeah.
I know you've spoken about this, but I was really charmed by my getting to interact with and meet Post Malone around his project last year, and I felt really invigorated by the way that he went about making the album and the way that he's just like a fan of the music.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a bit of, I mean, even walking into a studio and getting to be with a live band, which was like candy. It was like a playground when we were first doing it. You've done it long enough. It's not new anymore. And it can get cynical.
Sure.
So I've really loved that, you know, he had a little bit of an impact on you too.
Oh, he did for sure.
Had y'all met, tell me about the origin of this friendship.
I first met Post, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It had to have been, he was brand new, like on the scene. So it must have been 7 or 8 years ago. I hosted they did the 50-year anniversary of the Elvis comeback special, and
Fun.
and the CBS did this television show, and I hosted it for them. And that was the first time I met Post Malone. And I was telling someone earlier, it was like I knew who Post Malone was, just the name. I didn't know the music. I knew he was kind of a rock rap guy, and Keith Urban was the first person to tell me about him. He was like, "Have you heard Post Malone?" I go, "No." He's always, man, he's great. You're gonna love him, you know. And so Post came in that day, and I remember he was wearing like this, like a nudie suit, like this. I think it was like yellow or like a light color, like crazy. And I remember thinking, this is the rap guy. This is the rap rock guy, you know, and he got up on stage, and I remember watching him and Keith Urban. They were just like jamming during sound check, you know, and I was just kind of blown away by, first of all, his talent, but second of all, his knowledge of all kinds of music. I mean, you pick up on that immediately with Post. But anyway, fast forward to last year, he reached out and asked if I would sing on "Pour Me a Drink" with Post, and of course I was honored. And when we were shooting the video for the song is when I really realized, oh my God, this guy's like crazy country fan, like nerd, and to the point, like, you know, we would be in between shots, in between setups at the video, and you have downtime, 45 minutes, an hour in between, you know, takes, and so we just ended up sitting around drinking, and he was super excited to play his record. Not many people had heard it, I guess, at that point, and there's a fiddle player that he's crazy about named Larry Franklin. And he was like, man, you ever heard of Larry Franklin? And I go, yeah. I said, but I haven't thought of him in years. You know, when I first moved to Nashville, I used to play at the bullpen. You know, the stockyards had that bar underneath it. And Larry was always in there with like their all-star band. And I go, I remember Larry Franklin from that band. He was like, no, man, look, check this out, though. And, you know, he's showing me all to the point where, you know, somebody's always wanting to show you something on their phone, you know, you're like, okay. And it's like Larry Franklin on Austin City Limits with Asleep at the Wheel. Oh, here's Larry Franklin doing this or that. And it was like, he got me so fired up about Larry Franklin that I ended up getting Larry. I called Scott Hendricks. I was like, hey, man, we need to hire Larry. I know. I said, we got to get Larry Franklin. Yeah, Post is right. Like, what the hell have we been thinking all these years, you know? Yeah. We got to get him back, you know? And so he ended up coming and playing on my record. But my point is, being around him, like you're saying, it's infectious how fired up he is about
zest for things. Life, zest for music, like zest for we're doing it, we're here, and I mean, it's hard to not be moved.
And his respect for country music and how important it is to him to show his respect to Nashville and the Grand Ole Opry and the artists and the songwriters. And that's why I think, you know, when you see artists come in and want to just drop, you know, from other genres, just drop a country album, and they're not always embraced like Post is, because Post did the groundwork before he ever even released an album. I mean, he was out there doing covers at, you know, at country festivals and things. You know, he wanted to show that it really is who he is and what it meant to him, you know, and I think that's why he's been so embraced, because he's poured the love on Nashville way before he dropped music on it, you know. Yeah.
And it's hard to, you can feel it. You just feel it in every move and every detail. And that band, I mean, the band that he was touring with is just insanity, and the band that played on the record. It was a lot of fun. So your gorgeous wife, Gwen Stefani, joins you on Hanging On. Yeah. I love seeing this as a Charles Kelleigh co-write.
Yeah.
Tell me how you heard the song, and then tell me about y'all singing it together.
I was shocked that Charles, that they haven't recorded this song, you know, for Lady A, and I don't know that. I'm just glad they didn't. Is all I care, to be honest with you. But Charles had sent it over, and at the time I was still recording for Warner Brothers Records, or Warner Nashville, I think it's called now, and I was in between label deals, and he was super like, hey, what are y'all doing with my song in the middle of all this? So I sent him a text. I go, Charles, listen, I can't tell you who, but I think I've got a deal, you know, lined up, and you're going to be happy. And the song, by the way, I'm recording it with Gwen, and he was like super, super excited about it at that point. And I love the song. I love songs that push me as a vocalist. Ooh. And this one definitely does. You know, Charles has got a huge voice, probably underrated vocalist, honestly, with his range. Mm-hmm. And if you ever wonder, you know, go cut one of his songs. Hanging On has definitely had me on the ropes, you know, but I love to be pushed like that as a singer. And then, you know, any chance I get to record with Gwen, I'm going to jump at it. I'm always looking for ways to record and do something different than I've ever done before, and having this opportunity to record with Gwen really gives me that opportunity, you know, on every album, really. I mean, she's Gwen Stefani, like, it's already weird that we're even together in the first place, you know, let's face it. And so to be able to combine our music, you know, and cross paths there, it's always something interesting and different. And so I'm super proud to have her on that song.
You are an amazing singer live.
Thank you.
This is not to, but I have to say, I think I would be freaked out if, like, my partner was just like, could sing like Gwen Stefani around the house. Like, listening to her voice and even in a casual way, I have to just think is like wild.
I've learned so much about her singing, you know, in the last 10 years, because you hear her records, like, especially with No Doubt, and she has that crazy, like, wiggly vibrato thing that's like her signature. but she also has the ability to take that out, you know, and you can hear something totally different in her. This last record that she made, you know, people were shocked to hear that, you know, when you kind of strip everything away and you have these acoustic instruments and you hear like all the little nuances in her voice and the way she can sing, to your point, like she's versatile.
Yeah.
And I never would have known that had I not, you know, hang around the house with her and we play stuff on the guitar or whatever. The first time I think people really heard it, they did a Judd's tribute album a year or so ago, and she and I did Love Is Alive, and I really didn't do much. I just sang, you know, some harmonies on it, and it's really just her. And people, I've never seen so much, like my phone was blowing up when that song came out going, oh my God, I didn't know Gwen sang like that. I didn't know she could do that, you know. I don't know that she even knows how strong of a vocalist she is and how versatile she is.
It's just unusual, too, that when you have such a signature sound, like she's such a specific, like, I mean, you hear her voice, you know who it is. That she could then clean up her tone like that and be that versatile like you were describing. It's just, I mean, that's like technician stuff.
Yeah.
That's like knowing how to use her instrument in this like a fascinating way. So cool.
She blows me away.
Do you guys I mean, not to be overly technical, do y'all go in and actually sing together because of what that kind of does?
We do.
For you? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. We've done it both ways, but we always pretty much try to be there at the same time together. We've recorded a lot of music together over the years. When we look back, it's like we think it's 2 or 3 songs, and it's really not, you know. There's a lot of music. A lot of it hasn't come out yet, you know.
Oh, cool.
Our favorite thing that we've done is we have a song on her Christmas album called "You Make It Feel Like Christmas" that we went into the studio and sang together, and we had so much fun because it was all kind of spontaneous on the spot. We wrote the song together, and then with Busby, who passed away a few years ago, and we just had a blast in the studio that day because we didn't really know, you know, what was going to happen with the song, and now it's kind of become a perennial. We hear it every year during Christmas time to get it played, and that was always the goal. Yeah. To have something like that. So I'm not sure what you even asked me now.
I don't care. I loved your answer. It was great. Tell me about the song "Let Him In Anyway."
Man, that song. I don't know when you're making records, you know, what you set out to do with a record. I almost never have like a set thing that I want to say with an album. I'm always just looking for a collection of the best songs I can get my hands on. I don't care who writes them. If I write them, you write them. I don't know.
I'd like to write them.
Yeah, that's like for me. It's like
that's it. Best song.
Yeah, and so when I heard "Let Him In Anyway," it's like, all right, I don't know that song's ever even been written before, and it just it hit me so hard, you know, that I instantly was like, I'm recording this, and I got a text about 3 weeks after I put it on hold, or maybe I had already cut the track, from Hardy, who's a co-writer on the song, and he goes, "Man, are they messing with me, or did you really cut this song?" I go, "Man," and I was afraid that he was texting to say, I needed that for my record, you know, and I go, "Man," I said, "Yeah," I said, "You know, I am cutting it, and I'm blown away by the song. And are you sure, you know, that you're not going to put it on your record?" And he goes, "Man, I'd already recorded a song that was kind of in that lane, and so I decided not to cut that one." I said, "Well, man, I'd be totally honored to have it on my record." And of course he gave me the green light, and I'm super proud of it. I'm really excited about the reaction that it's gotten, you know, talking about the Baby earlier, a song that I had on my second album. Not since that song have I gotten the kind of response to a song that hits people like "Let Him In Anyway" does, you know. It's just such a emotional thing, and it's something I think that goes through our minds when someone passes away. Like, you know, we all like to think everyone goes to heaven, but I don't know. You don't know. We don't
How
know.
would
You
we
know what I
know?
mean?
Yeah.
And so the sentiment of the song is just such a. It's a newly way. I don't think the song's ever been written before, but we've all had this thought. I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm trying to say.
And it's that inescape. It's like it's gone. Like they're gone. It's literally the moment has passed, and like eternity is in question.
Yeah.
It's just such exactly what you just said. Was there someone that was like weighing on you as you heard it that it was making you think of, or?
You know, at this age, there was a lot of people. You know, the older you get, the more people you lose, and so there was. I was thinking of so many people, and I was thinking of so many people I know that have just recently lost someone, you know, like, and not just their best friend, their mom, their dad, sadly their kids, you know. When you get to my age, you know, you go, man, there's about 30 people I can think of right now that I wish I could be there when they hear this song, you know, because it's gonna knock them down, you know, and it has done that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you have a different or changing relationship with your faith at this point, like in your mid-40s?
Yeah, I would say that, and that comes from Gwen's influence. You
Really?
know, Gwen is, you know, I've learned so much from her, and she's really the person that's helped me kind of, you know, get in touch with my faith and get serious about it, and not just something that you say at an award show, and you know, in those moments, like you get real about it. You know, she reminds me to think about it all day long. You know, when you're around her, and everything she sees, you know, she sees God in it, and it's really special to be around her because it's just. Her faith is alive, and it's incredible to be around her, and she's so happy about it, and she loves to share it to anybody that'll listen, and it's inspiring to be around her.
Wow, that's interesting. You know, I didn't know that about her.
Yeah.
But it's funny, and I've only met her in passing, but she's so radiant, and it reminds me of like other women that I know. Like I'm thinking of Kimberly Schlappman, and I'm thinking of Dolly. That like they're almost like lit from within.
Yeah. That's funny you say that about Kimberly. I've always thought about that with her too. Like it's just, I don't think I've ever seen her without a smile from ear to ear. You know, it's like she's just an incredible person. Dolly, obviously, but Gwen has that too. You know, she just has that.
It's beautiful.
It's fun to be around.
Yeah,
I promise you.
Like, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hear you